Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending this special event hosted by the City of Bellevue. Today, we're here to celebrate the amazing life, service, and impact of Dr. Don Davidson, the former longtime council member and mayor who passed away earlier this year on February 6th. Dr. Davidson served the community of Bellevue as an elected member of the council for nearly 3 decades. His dedication to Bellevue and helping his neighbors is unquestionable. There are so many people who requested an opportunity to honor Don, which isn't easy during a pandemic, and people in the community who wanted to remember him and to share and hear stories about him. The thing that I know about Don is I always really liked him, and he always represented me well as a council member. And I always voted for him. And when I came onto the council, both he and his wife were extremely gracious to me, and I enjoyed the many conversations I had with him. I look forward to hearing the stories that we're going to hear today from the many of us who really appreciated Don, and he's just an amazing man. And I want to thank you all for being here in celebration of him. And now I'll turn it over to my friend and former mayor, John Chelmanek.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Robinson. This is in some ways an unusual memorial service. It's unusual in the sense that all of us shared the same passion with the person that we're memorializing today. And that passion, of course, was the support of the City of Bellevue to make Bellevue that shining city on a hill. Don wore that passion for Bellevue on his sleeve. He was fiercely loyal to the city, fiercely loyal to the staff of the city. He served as mayor 2 terms, and again was loyal to make sure that everyone had the opportunity to be heard. Don's family, of course, were not members of the council, but I am certain that they also wore that same passion, because I'm sure that Don brought that passion home and talked about all of the things about the city, both good and bad, with his family. And I'm sure that that is translated into their passion for the city. You could not listen to the stories that Don would tell about. I mean, you couldn't listen to them and not be thrilled as Don went through all of the arcane ways we adopted policy and the ways that he maneuvered to make sure the policy was the one that he wanted. He really was a legislator's legislator. We also had dinner with Don, and that was like family dinner. We have dinner together, the council does, before the meeting, and Don was always there with a strong presence at those meetings, even when he was feeling sick, but he was always there as a strong presence. I admire Don's skills regarding the budget. Don knew where every penny was located. He knew where every dollar was supposed to be spent. He knew how to make sure that money got spent on the priorities that he supported and the priorities that the council supported. And he was also kind of tricky about making sure if there was something he wasn't too sure about, that maybe the money or not as much money got spent there. He was very good at that. And I think we all learned a lot about budgeting from Don. It was all about the policy. The budget is the policy document that the city council passes. Don loved Bellevue, and Bellevue is truly a much better place that it had Don serving this city. I'm now going to ask that the current council read the commendation that has been done for Don, and then I'm going to ask that his son Scott be our next speaker, and that he have some remarks about his father. Charmaine, I'll turn it back to you or back to the mayor.
Thank you, John. So we will start with Councilmember Barksdale.
And my condolences to the family. Whereas Don Davidson, who served over 27 years on the City Council between 1983 and 2014, including 2 terms as mayor, passed away on February 6, 2021. And
Whereas, yeah, thank you. My condolences to the family as well. I will read the official commendation or part of it, but I will personally say something about my relationship with Don afterwards. Whereas a long-time dentist and a small business owner, fondly known as Dr. Duck, or simply Dr. D, Davidson consistently advocated for balanced budgets and restrained city spending. And
whereas when the council was considering how best to manage growth in the 80s and 90s, Davidson supported participation from residents and businesses in a process that led to Bellevue building up downtown and preserving residential neighborhoods. And
yeah, sorry, I couldn't get my mute off. Whereas Davidson was a dedicated advocate for high quality water and supported the formation of the Cascade Water Alliance in the 1980s and was a leader on its board. And
whereas Dr. Davidson was a passionate environmentalist, he grew up fishing and canoeing, and he pushed for salmon recovery while a council representative on regional boards. And
whereas a resident for over 50 years, Davidson raised 3 children in the community he loved. Observing in his council farewell, Bellevue is a great city with wonderful and involved residents.
And whereas Don showed a tireless effort on the city's behalf for supporting interests and issues that benefited the people who live, work, and visit Bellevue, I, Lynn Robinson, Mayor of the City of Bellevue, Washington, and on behalf of his entire City Council, do hereby commend Dr. Don Davidson for his unwavering devotion, impact, and 4 decades of public service to the City of Bellevue and its residents.
And we'll now ask Scott Davidson to say a few words about his father. And then when we are done there, we will have an opportunity for people to speak briefly about their relationship with Don.
Thank you very much. I want to thank everybody for coming to this in the middle of this COVID crisis. It's been very difficult to get people together to remember my dad. And so the whole family really appreciates it. My name's Scott Davidson. My mother Sue is here. My sister Cheryl and my brother Brent are all here too. And Don's grandkids are here also. So we're here to honor my dad. We moved to Bellevue in 1967 after he served in the Air Force, and he started a dental practice in Bellevue. At the time, Bellevue was only 14 years old, and it was a simple bedroom community of 60,000 residents. He got involved just wanting to make the city a better place for his family. He volunteered in youth sports as we grew up, and he continued to get involved in various organizations as his understanding of the city continued to grow. For us, it became clear that he loved meetings and discussing policy. I'm not sure how many of us really love meetings, but he did. You might ask what kept him enjoying the council for 27 years. He loved a good argument. During the day, he would test those arguments on his patients as they sat in his dental chair, talking to them about policies and decisions, all the while with his hands in their mouth so they could only nod yes or no. He loved the city and the people that worked here. He had the utmost respect for the staff and the work they did day in and day out. He was known for his concern for financial responsibility. We would watch him spend hours and hours studying the budget. I believe he read every line. He would talk to me about why Bellevue was special and how it was becoming a better place, how the fiscal health of a city goes beyond keeping the budget well managed. Just as important was the development of a diverse tax base. He talked about how cities can get locked into a limited tax source, which forces one part of the constituency to shoulder a large amount of the burden. He would talk about how a healthy tax base involves a balance between multiple revenue sources, commercial, residential, and retail. In the early 80s, Bellevue implemented a strategic plan that prepared the city to become one of the biggest benefactors of the high-tech office boom of the 90s and 2000s. A diverse revenue source allowed the stable tax base to continue to fund services that was required by a city. My dad used to talk about how infrastructure was not simply added. He would use roads as an example. Along with their initial vision, budgeting for the future maintenance and ongoing costs were key to keeping Bellevue on a sustainable path forward. He participated in the development of a downtown park and the botanical gardens as part of the vision of a city that includes green space. He was always trying to figure out how to make the city livable at 40 stories when all of us saw 4 to 6 stories. He was also concerned about planning for future improvements for city services that keep people safe, such as fire and police. Early at his time on the council, he would talk about the continual funding and development of the Medic One program and how important it was. Now Bellevue stands as a regional hub. Bellevue now supports more jobs than its 144,000 residents. It is a key to the health of the larger region, supplying both jobs and services. As Bellevue transformed into a regional leader, my dad represented the city in planning regional issues that still continue to be a challenge today. He once said that he was most proud of securing water rights for the city and always was a voice in their management. He continued to participate in the larger regional management of natural resources. He took a concerned and careful approach to the complex issues of transportation that clearly continue to transform the city today. And as always, look to plan for the support of higher density housing as the needs for the growing population grew. It is this type of responsible and accountable planning that has assured the health of Bellevue, not for us now, but for generations to come. It continues to be a place that people, families, and businesses want to be. This is what I think he'd want you to hear today. Bellevue is a city that he was always proud of. It was work he always held close to his heart, and his work that still is part of his spirit today. I want to thank you all for supporting my father and ask everyone to remember him for what he stood for and what makes this city, the city he came to love, so special. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. We're going to hear now if council members would like to use the raise hand function to speak and talk a little about Don. We'd love to hear that. We have some of his former colleagues who have already signed in to speak. And Charmaine, I'm going to let you go ahead and manage that process because I'm too old to do that with technology.
Very well. So with that, I will call on Councilmember Lee, who has indicated he would like to speak.
Thank you. Well, it's a sad day. Again, I would like to share my condolence with the family, particularly with Sue. We all probably have heard and will hear a lot of things about Don, his service to the city. And, he's on record. We know what he stands for. But for me, so I don't need to go over all those. People know I sometimes talk a lot. So I probably would take a few hours, probably not even then to finish all the wonderful things and contribution and the service he has done for the city and the people of the city of Bellevue, on and off the council. It's important. And so I just want to say something personally. It's sad, to say goodbye to Don. People call him Dr. D. And, I've worked with him for, as people know, over 27 years. And he is just a true servant and a friend. We probably spend more time together in council meetings and other get-together than we spend with our own family, with our own wives. So I want to especially, really give thanks to the support that Sue has given to Don and had put up with him. Obviously, we all know that. But this is indeed, reflected by, the family and that Don has had, and with Sue's support and raising such a wonderful family and grandkids. And this is the accomplishment that we cannot just do it from our public service, but it's a personal thing that requires the support and the dedication and the interworking relationship of all of us. And that speaks a lot, about Don. He truly understands and want to serve the people. And he wants to make sure that, we all here understand and we all can do things for the best of the city and of the Bellevue citizens. So it's really, again, hard to say all, but, all those things about him has been said. But you cannot express, a person's feeling because you have been with them. You have been building a relationship. You start with, practically nothing, as strangers. But, as we have worked together, we find more and more, opportunities. And not just on things that we obviously share in common. But, I think one of the things he has done is because of that, he's being able to work with any side of the issue. The community, we don't have the one community. We don't have the one council. But he has been able to work together, bring all sides of opinion together. He wants to be sure that we all being heard. Wants to ensure that we get something done, move forward. So this is a characteristic, he has shared. As a result, he has been elected mayor. And I just one thing I would mention that has something to do with him and with the official, duty he has done. When I got on the council, 27 and a half years ago, at that time, Ron Smith and I were elected. And just two of us plus Don, we ended with Georgia Zumdike. People I hope still remember her. We worked together. We really was able to forge a coalition of perhaps different opinions sometimes, but we all are fiscally responsible. And we figured out, because Don's ability on the budget, knowing how to spend the money, how to be fiscally responsible, we were able to make a big change from, having our property tax collected with 6% increase every year, automatically. We were able to stop collecting property tax increase for the next 10 years or so, and which has become a model example of how we should spend money that people that we represent had hard earned to give us to make things work for the city. So I think, and he has continued to do that. As a result, he was elected again the mayor for another time. So I want to just show that because his personal friendship, I really feel very sad. And for the city, because of the way he has conducted himself and business, and the City of Bellevue has come to where we are today. So my condolences again, Sue, and everyone in the family.
Thank you, Councilmember Lee. Councilmember Stokes, and then Councilmember Robertson.
Yeah, thank you, Sue and Scott and Emily. I wanted to talk a little bit about something that why he's so important to me and my work on the council. When I first came on, and we have some differences in political opinions and things like that, but we got together over something that is very important to Don as part of his whole life, and that's the fishies. I was I was a liaison my first year for the Environmental Services Commission, followed in his footsteps. And I talked to him. He gave me a lot of advice. Then we got involved with the whole reordering of the King Conservation District, King County Conservation District. That was a long process. I was the deputy or the alternate to Don on that committee, and Don got sick during that, had a little sickness during that time period. And so he turned to me and he said, "Okay, John, it's yours, do it." And we talked and all. And so I took that lead from him, and we talked about how it went, and it turned out to be an amazing process and all. And then the next thing that came along was the, and the other thing that came out of that also was the Cascade Water Lines, and I've been involved with that a good time too. And again, sharing that same, same passion about the ecology, about fish, about water. And Don was always there, and we could always have good conversations about this, and he inspired me in this, and I really appreciate that. And then the last thing is with the Watershed Wire 8 Salmon Recovery Council that Don was very involved in, and I joined that later, and and still in the chair of that. And Don would, even when he was had left the council, Don would come to the meetings. And he was always like to joke about things. He'd always kind of kid me about things and talked about the fishies, but he was so serious, so really serious about preserving the salmon, preserving the sound, preserving the things that were really important. Tall buildings are great. All these other things we're doing, working on transportation, light rail, all these things. And Don really helped get the light rail through too. But when it came down to it, Don loved and wanted to see the fish survive and the region survive. And to me, that has always been a great impetus for myself, focusing on things, and something I'll always remember about him. All the other things that he's done are great, but this one is on that contributes and leaves something for the citizens in this area forever. So I'm really sorry that that this happened. But he had a great life, and he left behind a great legacy. And thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Stokes. Councilmember Robertson, followed by Deputy Mayor Neuenhaus.
Thank you. Sue, Scott, Cheryl, Brent, and the grandchildren, Emily, Ian, Madison, and Savannah. Thank you for sharing your husband, father, grandfather with the people of Bellevue and with his colleagues on the council for so many years. I first met Don when I was co-chairing the Light Rail Best Practices Committee, and he was one of 2 council members of that committee. That was back in 2007. And then I got to know him a lot better when I got elected to the council in 2009. And there's some universal truths about Dr. D. One is he cared about people. He cared about the people of Bellevue. He cared about the people he served with, the people on the staff, and his family so deeply. He cared about all aspects of the city, whether it's the pipes under the ground or the skyscrapers high above them. He wanted excellence in all things and wanted to make sure that the city developed in a way that served the needs of people and provided a great place for people to live and work. He always did his best. He showed up and he studied all of the decisions he made. Sometimes I thought analysis paralysis, but he was determined to get to the right decision and to be completely knowledgeable. And he always did. He studied deeper than many, many people do. And I always appreciated that about him, and I learned from him. He always had a smile on his face. I don't think I ever saw him when he didn't. If he wasn't smiling when I looked at him, he was within 5 seconds. He had a great sense of humor and had a great joy for life. I mean, he loved living and he loved connecting with people. They say the purpose of life is to leave it better than when you started and to live your life. And he encompassed both of those things so well. He has done a number of wonderful things for this city that have been mentioned, from the Cascade Water to, during the growth wars, making sure that Bellevue could continue to grow instead of be filled with low rise strip malls. The Bellevue we have today is due in part to his passion and his willingness to do to do what was needed to make it happen, whether it's the vote on the downtown park or the vote to rezone downtown. He loved a great debate. He loved it especially well when he won it, which he did with the growth in the downtown. But he just did so much, and his commitment and love of the city can only be eclipsed by his commitment and his love of his family. I was very aware in knowing Don that Sue was the love of his life. I'm gonna get choked up now, and that his kids and grandkids hung the moon in his mind. So I'm grateful to have served with him as I did, and to have had, just the friendship I had with him, and to see the impact that he's had on the lives of so many and the growth of this city. Thank you for letting us have him and letting him serve this city so well.
Thank you, Councilmember Robertson. Deputy Mayor Newenhouse.
Thank you, Charmaine. Yeah, Sue and the entire Davidson family, my condolences once again. And Scott, great job on your, at the beginning of the top of the hour here. I think you really captured Don there in so many different ways. So thank you for that, and great job. I didn't have the pleasure of serving with Don, but really got to know him quite well. Not as well as my colleague, certainly, but just a great man, and someone who just loved this city more than just about anybody I would speak to. I mean, and his level of energy was always incredible too. I would just see him everywhere, even when he wasn't in office, be it the Strawberry Festival or down at Kelsey Creek or volunteering with the Eastside Heritage Center. He was just everywhere, and his love for the city just came through time and time again. It was really just inspirational to see. And I know I will certainly miss our lunches, our occasional lunches at Pagaccia, one of his favorite places, or at the Bellevue Club. Problem is, if I asked him a policy question, I would finish my lunch and he would barely have a bite into his sandwich, and then and we ended up having at least a 2-hour lunch to give him time to finish up. But that was Don in a big way. I think it was such a policy wonk, and certainly, as Councilmember Lee mentioned, his love for the budget process, and certainly may have been the fiscal hawk prior to Conrad. So again, he was just unwavering, loyal, dedicated council member and mayor to this city, and I certainly will miss him. I think the city is going to miss him, and certainly the city is better off because of Don Davidson and his commitment to this city, and he certainly left the city better than he found it. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Newenhouse. At this point, I don't see any other current council member hands raised. I will call on a couple of former council members and mayors. And with that, I will call on Claudia Balducci.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor Robinson, council members, Brad, our city manager, Charmaine, for putting this together. I really was saddened to hear about Dr. D's passing, and to not have the opportunity to join together with all of you to talk about him, to remember him, to honor him. And so this is really important and special. Thank you for providing the space for this to happen. You see a number of us who serve or have served on the city council here on the call, and there are many people who passed through these seats, these 7 seats over the years since the city was incorporated back in the early 50s. But few at the end of the day will have had the lasting impact that Dr. D has left on the city. He was a truly consequential leader for our community. I only worked with him for 12 years, unlike Councilmember Lee, had a few more than me, but I just really enjoyed getting to know Dr. Davidson. I enjoyed working with him. We disagreed about a lot of things. He and I did not see eye to eye. As he would put it, we were on different teams at times, but I think we were always both on Team Bellevue. He often spoke of somebody, he would compliment a leader of the city by saying that they waved the flag high for the city. That meant a lot to him when people, did the best for Bellevue or helped Bellevue look good, because he cared so much about the city. you know, we arrived often at the same place by different paths. I remember early on in my time on the council, we had an issue around whether to offer benefits to employees who had same-sex partners. And this was long before marriage equality was passed. And at the time, I perceived Don to be the most conservative member of the council, and I myself was probably the most liberal member of the council, but we both supported those benefits for same-sex partners. And his argument was that we need to be a good employer, that we need to attract good people if we're going to have a good government, and that lots of big companies were providing these benefits, and so that we should do it too. And so when he spoke up and I spoke up and we both said we should do this, pretty quickly the rest of the council came along and we just did it. We didn't make a big deal out of it. We didn't debate it forever. We just took the vote and we moved on. And that was the kind of change that he could make. I remember once, one night, being very impressed, and I will remember this for the rest of my career and my time in service and watching cities. Don was not a fan of the light rail project. He did not always think that that was something that we spend a ton of money on, or that that was the best way for people to get around in the city of Bellevue. And we had a number of debates, very passionate debates, and a long road working on how to incorporate light rail into our city. And I remember one night we were having a debate about it, and we had a big consequential vote that was coming up. And the question was whether we would enter into an agreement with Sound Transit or fight them. And if we decided to not enter into agreement with them, but rather to fight them, who knows what would have happened, right? I think everybody assumed that we were going to have 4 votes to not enter into the agreement. And at the last minute, after a very long meeting, Don voted to enter into the agreement. He flipped. He voted the opposite of his own opinion. And when I talked to him afterwards, he said, because he was the mayor and he represented the whole city, and he needed to do what the city voters wanted him to do, not necessarily what he thought was best to do. And he knew that they wanted us to enter into that agreement and allow the light rail to come to the city. And so that is so rare. It is really, really rare that anybody is able in these positions to put aside their own opinion and do what they think their constituents want them to do. And I'll just always remember that took character and integrity, and he had a lot of both of those. Don wasn't just a politician. He was a really fun guy to work with. He was quick with a joke. He had this incredible, infectious, hearty laugh. As has been said, he was always out in the community. He went to every community event. You'd see him not just at the Strawberry Festival, but at sheep shearing and all of the big community festivals. And he was great at charming crowds of children and young people. They just loved to hear him and talk to him. He was like a grandpa to the whole community in some ways. He was extremely dedicated to his constituents. He often did take straw polls of his dental clients, and we got to hear about them at dinner, about what the word on the street was, and what he meant was the word in his chair. At council retreats, he was known to pull out the bagpipes and play them for us. And you know, that takes a bit of daring to be willing to pull out the bagpipes and play them in the middle of a hotel ballroom. So I could tell many, many more stories. I loved working with Dr. Davidson. He was a friend. He was a mentor in many ways. I think we did a lot of great things together on the council. The city shows his imprint in many ways all over, and it always will. And I will always remember him and be glad that I got to serve with him. I offer my deepest condolences to his family. I did bring a proclamation, but I'm not going to read it because most of what is on it has already been said. But the only thing I will add is that this proclamation is from the King County Council. And part of the reason that we did it was because Don was not just a leader for Bellevue, he was a regional leader. All throughout the Pacific Northwest, King County especially, he was recognized for his leadership style, his deep knowledge, and his caring for our environment, for our communities. He was a founding member of the Sound Transit Board. He helped to create that first Sound Transit ballot measure. He served on many regional water and environmental boards, and people really respected him. When Bellevue wasn't getting a lot of regional positions, Don always was appointed to regional positions because of his own personal characteristics that people respected. So the entire King County Council signed a proclamation, which I have shared with Sue, and will gladly get more copies of it for anybody who wants one, recognizing and honoring Don for his life of service and his achievements. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Balducci. The next speaker is Grant Daginger, former council member and former mayor.
Thank you, Charmaine. Thank you, Mayor Robinson and current council. And I too want to just extend my condolences to the Davidson family. Scott, you did such a marvelous job of capturing so many of the things that your father did in his decades of service to our city, and our city is so much better for it. When I first ran for the council, I was running for a seat that your father was sitting in. He had been appointed to that seat after the untimely passing of Council Member Zumdike, and he was kind enough to support me and give me a lot of wise counsel along the way when I ran. Little did I know that about a year and a half later, there was another opening on the council, and Don joined us once again, and I had the pleasure of working with him for over a decade. And in particular, we worked a lot together on some things that he was extraordinarily passionate about, specifically the Cascade Water Alliance and having a regional water supply for the east side, which he had worked on for many years, and which together it took a lot of lifting and a lot of efforts to, and a lot of consistency in our council and in our region to make sure that Cascade was successful. And over 25 years later, that work is continuing, and Councilmember Stokes is leading that effort today. He also cared a lot about salmon recovery, and you've heard a lot about that. One other thing that was mentioned was his care about parks, particularly seeing the downtown park fully developed. But we worked very closely and worked hard on a city parks levy. He cared about parks, and he knew how important that was to the fiber of this community, and he was supportive of the efforts to not only create new parks, but to maintain the ones that we had. As former Mayor Chelmanak mentioned, nobody loved the process of legislation more than Don. And he was a master grinder of the legislative sausage, and was worked passionately on the issues he cared about, but he also cared about the people that he worked with on the council and on the staff. And that always was very visible as well. He was very astute at seeing how important things were, and when there were tough votes and there were difficult things to decide, he always said, if we get it wrong, it'll come back to us again anyway. And I see Councilmember Balducci nodding her head, and truly that was true. We worked hard, but sometimes they came back, and we worked on it again, and we made it better. He made Bellevue better. Thank you so much to his family for letting him serve for so many years and in so many different ways. He will be missed. I will miss him. And the city is so much better for his service. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daginger. At this point, I would like to call on City Manager Brad Miyake.
Sure. Thank you, Charmaine. Sue and family, just on behalf of the City of Bellevue staff, we wanted just to recognize Dr. Davidson for his many years of service to the Bellevue residences as well as the businesses. Many of the city staff, as you've all heard, will always remember Dr. Davidson for his extensive knowledge of municipal finance and his strong fiscal stewardship ethic. I know firsthand because I was the budget manager at the time Don was on the council in his early years, and he definitely ran me through my paces there. Needless to say, Bellevue's strong financial position today is in large part due to Dr. Davidson's strong fiscal policy direction while he was on the council. Many of us also will remember Dr. Davidson for his strong stewardship of the environment, including his interest and support of salmon recovery and water supply, as many of you, the former council members, have mentioned. Finally, all of us will remember him for his support and how he cared and how loyal he was to the staff. So Sue and family, on behalf of the staff, thank you for sharing Don with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miyake. At this point, I would ask if there is anyone else who would like to make comment right now. Please use the raised hand function or wave your hand in so we can see you. Doesn't, oh, here we go. And unfortunately, it's not attached to a name. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, I'm Paul Maffio, and I was one of Don's last appointees to both the Rotary and the Eastside Heritage Board. So I feel honored, and even at 77, when he did appoint me, I just wanted to recognize him and what wisdom he had in finding a gentleman as old age to serve on these boards. And he's just one heck of a gentleman.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to say a few words? Mr. Vanderhook?
Hi, Carl Vanderhook here. Well said, everybody.
Wait. I think she called on the wrong Vanderhook.
No, I was first. But yeah, I mean, I've known Don for as long as I can remember, since he was working on my baby teeth probably. And so I hope he wasn't using me as a sounding board for his political decision making at that time. You know, that would have been inappropriate. But Sue and Becky there and the rest of the family, our condolences are with you. I mean, you could see here, this is just a small drop of all the lives that he's touched. But I mean, you've got Rotarians here, you got Eastside Heritage Center, you got Kids Quest, the city, you know, left and right. He has touched all these organizations, and even deeper, like the people within it and the people in this city. I think it's pretty special. He taught me a lot just from sitting there and having to listen to him, and I couldn't talk back or disagree. You were right about that. Whoever said it, you know, you get to shake your head. Oh, either way. Yeah, I just learning from him how the city works early on didn't mean a lot to me when I was in junior high and high school, probably. Not until I was older and started to participate and find joy and learning what made the city tick and how the politics of it all works, and working with a lot of you along the way. I think it's been pretty special, and it would have been a different learning curve if I just learned it all from those Vanderhooks that came before me. So I appreciate having him in my life.
Thank you. And the second Mr. Vanderhook, or perhaps the first Vanderhook.
Oh, not anymore. Well, you know, for those of you who didn't just speak in any way, I'm a little surprised so far. So I'm hoping between Carl and I and that we can help break that for all of you introverts. Don and I and Sue go back a long ways. And I'm not going to make it through this. This is why I didn't sign up. So my dad brought Don into the Bellevue Chamber as a dentist. Early 80s, Sue, if I remember correctly. Got him involved in politics that I don't think he really knew that he wanted to get involved with. And the rest of the stories that you just told, and so many others that are on these screens right here in front of us, you know, we're just all privileged to have been able to participate with him and let us share in his leadership and his presence, and, you know, things that he just knew when the right button was to push, and as he advised me way too many times, when not to push them. But for all you council members who I did have the privilege of participating with, and staff as well, you know, Don was the common thread between us for the most part. So I'm happy to see all of you here. Great guy, great family. It's my privilege to have been able to participate in his life and their lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vanderhook. Is there anyone else who would like to say a few words?
Mike Creighton, I think. Did you have your hand up?
Muted, Mike.
Thank you. I just had to unmute. Sue, my condolences to you and the rest of the family. It's been a privilege and an honor to know Don for many years. As a fellow Rotarian, as a council member, although we didn't overlap too much, I was kind of in the donut hole of Don's career, where I served most of the time when he was off the council, but we did serve for a while. We had many good debates over the years, traveled together to different conferences, etc. Truly a gentleman, and could see the future for the city. Was a great steward for the city. I learned a lot from him. We used to talk about Boy Scouts growing up in the area together and doing things like that. And so he'll truly be missed. I will truly miss him. And it's been really hard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Creighton. Heather Trescasses?
Hi, everyone. I hadn't planned to speak, but since Stu kind of called us out, and I would say partially why I don't know that I can hold it together, but I had the privilege of getting to know Don in the later part of his community involvement. I followed along when he was doing, when he was on council and when I was executive director of Eastside Heritage Center, but then when he stepped off council and Eastside Heritage Center had the opportunity to snag him to join our board. I really got to know him, and wow, what an amazing man. Sorry. We talked about Strawberry Festival and sheep shearing and whatnot, and really his favorite things to do were to sit there with the old stuff. He was in charge of the table of all the old objects, and he loved to talk to everybody that came by and show how those tools would work and tell his stories, and he was just so engaging. And I think I shared this at Parks Board, but one of the sort of not as visible things that he got really involved with at Eastside Heritage Center, and it became a little bit of a joke. Now, Sue could correct me if this isn't quite true, but he loved being a host and doceting at the Winters House. And one of the little bit of a jokes was that as a council member, he kind of led the charge. He wasn't quite supportive of saving the Winters House in the first place. But then later in life, he was one of our most reliable volunteers, staffing the Winters House, keeping it open for the public, and talking to people as they came into this National Historic Site. And it was the sweetest thing. And he'd admit it. He'd joke about the irony of it all. And he was a treasure. And then I got to know him even better as a fellow Rotarian, and sitting next to him at lunch and chatting. I can't say enough. I can't think of what to say now, and I can't say enough about what joy he brought to me and to our community. And it was just so wonderful to have him in my life. So thank you for sharing him with me and all of us.
Thank you very much. I see staff member Shelley Brittingham.
Yes, thank you, Charmaine. And my condolences to Dr. Davidson's families and friends. I had two memories of Dr. Davidson I wanted to share. To start with, I work for the city in Parks and Community Services. And thank you, Heather, for describing his participation at Kelsey Creek Farm Fair and sheep shearing. because I was often one of those people who I would spot him up there with all of the historical implements, and I'd take the time to go and talk with him and observe the families and just watch his interactions with them. My favorite memory, though, that I wanted to share was Dr. Davidson was also a great supporter of Bellevue Youth Theater. And Bellevue Youth Theater is very fortunate to have a nonprofit that works to provide additional funding for the program. And every year they would do a benefit. I know there are former council and current council members here who had participated in those benefits. Dr. Davidson in 2011 participated in the benefit in a play that was written by staff, kind of a remake of The Wizard of Oz, and he played the mayor of Munchkinville. And in 2012, he played a producer in Singing in the Rain. So it was delightful to see him participate and just to feel his support of all our programs and services and his caring for the community. So thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. Ross Jacobson?
Thank you. My heart is with the family. Very hard time. My condolences to the entire city for the loss of Don Davidson. My earliest memories of Don were at a campaign meeting at his house. I think it's the first time I met Sue up there. And it was the campaign that was sort of a co-campaign with Terry Lukens. Because I remember meeting with Terry and Don and all the campaigners on a Saturday morning down at the Maidenbauer Marina before going out to set up signs. A mid-range memory for me was selling Rotary ice cream with Don over at Bell Square. And I swear he didn't sell a single damn popsicle or piece of ice cream because he was so busy talking to everybody. Everybody knew him. And it was just in his element, just glowing with the conversations with all those people coming by. My later stage memory is when they both had hip replacements on the same day at Overlake Hospital. So I was there for about 3 days. I got to talk to Sue a little bit when she dropped by, but I'd go hobbling over on my crutches to talk with Don as well. And yes, he still had stories. Wonderful man. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any additional speakers? Looking for hands, and I believe I will turn it back to you, Mr. Chominak.
Well, thank you. And again, on behalf of everyone in the city, to Sue and Don's family, thank you for sharing Don with us. We know that it is a great time commitment. It takes away from family, but it also adds to family as well. And we thank you very much for that. I was asked to just give some closing words, and I think I've rewritten them 3 times during the time that I've been listening to everyone here today. Don really is still with us. That's the great part about being in Bellevue and Don's impression on Bellevue. If you walk through a Bellevue park, Don's there walking with you. If you're looking out over the lake or over a creek and you see that beautiful shoreline, that's Don's work. He did it for you. He also did it for the fishies. It was so much about clean water. If you happen to have the streets in your neighborhood resurfaced, Don's the guy out there on that asphalt truck because he understood building the street was important, but maintaining it was even more important. And he fiercely made sure we maintained our infrastructure. And every time you turn a faucet on and clean, really good tasting water runs out of it, say thank you to Don, because he was so much involved in that, especially through the Alliance. So again, on behalf of all of us here today, thank you for attending this memorial. Thank you again to the family for sharing Don with us. I will say good evening to all of you. Thank you.